This video will convince you of the basics of libertarian ethics. If you give me a few minutes of your time, you will never look at government, the world, or property ownership the same, ever again. First of all, what do I mean by libertarian ethics? Well, outside of its use to describe a vague political ideology, libertarianism is, at its core, an ethical system. It's a philosophy. The ethical system is that of libertarian property rights. I'm going to walk you through how you might deduce the ethical system of property rights from first principles, and the idea is that these principles are wholly uncontroversial, so if I use valid logic, there will be no room for ambiguity that the libertarian ethic is correct. The first principle is you own your own body. The idea that you own your own body is, thankfully, wholly uncontroversial in the 21st century. No one has a higher claim on your body than you do. If someone violates your rights to self-ownership by acting on your body without your permission, through violent force or through slavery, they are acting immorally. If you own your own body, then you are responsible for what your body does. This goes in two ways. If you use your body to injure or otherwise aggress upon someone else, you are at fault for committing an immoral action. By aggress here, I mean aggress in the ethical term by violate their rights to their body. I don't mean aggress as in look scary and say a few mean words. On the flip side, if your labor produces something of value, you are responsible for that production. Your intentional movement of your body and your expenditure of effort produced valuable items. 2. You own property you create. If you own your body and use it to create things, you then own that which you create. If I use my labor to fashion a stick into a spear, I own the spear, provided no one else owned the stick beforehand. Since the stick was unowned, nobody had any claim on it. Once I used my body and my labor to act on it, I produced the end product with my labor. This means that I now have ownership rights over the spear. This applies generally. If I use my body to appropriate natural resources, like using land to till soil and farm, I have an ownership claim on that land. Anybody acting upon it without my permission, just like my body, is acting immorally against me. You can test this idea by presuming it's not true. Then what happens? So let's say you don't own the property you create. In that case, whenever humans would try to make farmland or till soil or use weaponry to hunt for food hundreds of years ago, any other person could come and just take his food, take his soil, take his weaponry, and take his game, and there would be just about no chance for human development. So you can tell by assuming it's false that this principle just has to be true for human society to make sense. Number 3, you get to decide what to do with your property. If I own my property, I get to do whatever I want with it as long as it doesn't infringe upon anyone else's rights. This might seem like a bit of a stretch, but really it makes perfect sense if you think about it. To show why this has to be true, let's again consider the opposite. If I don't get to do what I want with my property, despite not infringing on anyone's rights, that's like saying other people will get to decide what is done with my property. That's the same as them acting on my property against my will. If they stop me from using my stuff as I desire, they are violating my rights because that would be in contradiction with point 2. So any property you own, as long as you don't hurt anyone with it, you can do pretty much whatever you want with it. And point 4, you can voluntarily exchange your property with other consenting adults. Since you own your body and your property, nobody can stop you from conferring ownership of your own things to other people in voluntary exchange. If someone does try to stop you, they run into the issues of premise 3, where you get to decide what you do with your property. This means that you get to exchange your labor or your existing property for other property, with any counterparty who also agrees to the exchange. Anyone trying to stop you is infringing on your rights. 5. To protect what you own, you have a right to self-defense. Anyone who tries to steal from you or infringe on your rights is doing an immoral action. You may block them from doing so by using requisite force to stop them from attacking you. Self-defense is an inseparable part of libertarian ethics. Again, if you assume you don't have a right to self-defense, well, what happens? People get to run over, take your things, and violate your rights with absolutely no recourse. And if you try to stop them, then without self-defense, it would be considered that you are violating their rights. That's obviously an untenable position. You have to be able to defend your rights in some way. Knowing this, you now understand libertarian ethics, or the basis of how it works. But what does it all mean? Knowing this takes you to some extremely interesting conclusions. Saying nobody can infringe on your rights means quite literally no one can infringe on your rights, whether they come up with fantastical justifications for why infringing on your rights is good for the world, or if they wear a nice suit, or say they're from the IRS. Anybody infringing on your rights is acting immorally. Let's take a second to understand this and how it applies to governments. What are governments? Well, governments are different from private institutions for only one reason. They have the unilateral right to tax. In ethical terms, they have the sole legitimized right to use violence to take resources. They have a territorial monopoly on the use of violence, so to speak. This really is what governments are when you think about it. The entire point of governments is that they can tax their citizens, and taxes are different from charitable donations for one reason, and that's because they are non-voluntary. By default, if you agree with the premises of libertarian ethics, you believe in the complete abolition of government. That is, you're an anarchist. If you agree that violence is bad, you believe that government is bad, because government is defined by violence. But sometimes people will say something like, but the government acts as a method of charity, it provides to the poor, provides welfare, etc. The people saying this I don't think really believe that it's a good objection to the ethical point. If you're walking down the street, for example, and a charity worker is there asking for donations, should the charity worker be able to shoot you if you don't give to the charity? No, of course not. I don't think anyone actually believes that. Just because some people like where the money that is stolen from you is going, does not legitimize the violence inherent in taking your stuff. Understanding this means that you understand that governments are ethically untenable. You cannot agree with what I've said and coherently argue that we shouldn't abolish the institution of government. That's about all for this video. We've looked at the principles of self-ownership and property rights. We've also looked at what they mean, but there's a lot more to go over in this domain. Libertarian ethics is a very well-developed field, so doubtless I'll be talking about this topic a lot more in the future. So if you found this interesting, subscribe for more. Otherwise, comment your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.